hello everyone, and welcome to our first European Digital Marketing Conference. My name is Adam from Startup Network Europe, and we are hosting this event with TikTok. And Philip, if you want to say a few words, please go ahead.
That's correct. Hey, Adam, and hey to everyone in the audience. My name is Philip, and I'm leading the strategic partnership management team for the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And together with Startup Network Europe, we brought to you this lovely little online event, the European Digital Marketing Conference 2023. So very excited about that. And Adam, what can we expect today?
Oh, we can expect a lot. So guys, we just have 60 minutes, and in 60 minutes, we will have 10 different speakers. That's the best way to do webinars. It's kind of like TikTok. It's very short, which people love. So we're going to have Constantin, who is CEO and owner of BRABUS. He'll join us later. Grazvydas, who is CMO of NFQ. Simon, who is head of marketing and CMO Germany at Cognizant. Simon, who is chief marketing officer of Vistatec. He's also president of the CMO club. That'll be interesting to talk about. We also have Elizabeth, who is a tech entrepreneur and previously co-founder and CMO of Market Logic Software. And then we have Sue, who is an interim chief marketing officer with a lot of previous experience as a global director of product marketing and VP marketing. And then, of course, we have Oliver, who is an education marketing consultant and until very recently CMO of Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. And last but not least, we have Peter, who is CMO of Cosmo Consults. So all of these speakers, also Johnny and Philip, they will both have a 15-minute chat at the end of the webinar. So all of these speakers have a lot of experience in marketing. It's going to be a nice hour packed with great content. So I think we can kick off now with Simon. Simon, so you are head of marketing and CMO Germany of Cognizant, and you have had similar positions in other companies before. My question for you is, what are your learnings when managing the relationship between sales, marketing, and other stakeholders?
First of all, I want to say thank you, Adam, for inviting me, and of course to TikTok and the Startup Network Europe for hosting this event. So to come to your question, it's a fancy question. So over the years, I've learned that managing the relationship between sales, marketing, and other stakeholders is a complex yet rewarding task. So today, I want to talk about three key aspects. So the first is open and transparent communication, which includes, of course, setting and pursuing common goals. The second one is a customer-centric approach. And the third one is data-driven decision-making. So to empathize the importance of these points, I'll share three stories from my career. So some time ago, imagine being really new into the role, only 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I was once thrown into a meeting with the entire sales team. I did 3 different campaigns within the next 4 weeks. So I'm not sure if you've ever seen the movie Back to the Future. Well, I wish I'd had a time machine back then, because 4 weeks for 3 campaigns, that's when you really learn to appreciate time. Anyway, this was a clear case of miscommunication, and there were high expectations and a very short notice. And addressing the situation highlighted the need for better communication, realistic expectations, and mutual understanding of each other's capabilities. And it taught us that only by working together, aligning our resources and objectives, we can achieve significant results. So Adam, in the intro, I think you were saying that we have a lot of marketers in the call, and I think all of the marketers will agree that a recurring ask from sales teams is to generate leads. So my next story is about exactly that. So at some point, my team and I faced another challenge, balancing quantity and quality when generating leads. So I decided to go ahead and implement rigorous marketing control focused on a marketing return on investment dashboard that would contain the data from our website and our CRM, tracking visitors and leads and conversion ratios, and focus not only on their quantity, but also on their quality. And surprisingly, despite the constant demand for sales leads from the sales team, they couldn't follow up with all the leads marketing was generating. So this bottleneck actually prompted us to streamline our process and also resources to foster better understanding. between sales and marketing. Now you might be thinking, how could the sales team want more leads? Well, even though there's a saying, you can't have too much of a good thing. In this case, it turns out you can have too much cake. Well, lastly, I'd like to touch on the power of an agile approach. It's the last story in fostering effective cross-functional collaboration. So in my most recent role, I introduced a Scrum-based agile working approach to marketing. And this included bi-weekly meetings with the sales and product management teams, reviewing our marketing output, aligning with objectives, and using the product management's input to shape our campaigns. And over the year, this way of working in an agile way produced a marketing ROI of over 700%. Now, I know what you're thinking. Did he say 700%? Yes, I was surprised as you are, but that's the magic of agile for you. So in conclusion, wrapping up, managing relationships between sales, marketing, and other stakeholders is about open communication, shared goals, a customer-centric approach, and data-driven decision-making. And to wrap up, in this fast-paced digital age, let's not forget that marketing and sales is like salt and pepper, to bring out the best in each other. That's the idea. And that may be simple or may seem simple, but without them, everything is just a bit bland. So reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're ready to add some spice. Thanks.
Yeah, brilliant, Simon. I love stories. Stories are the best way to remember lessons. So next up, we have another Simon speaking all the way from Ireland. And also, you have many titles, founder of the Think Global Forum, the Think Global Awards, and editor-in-chief for VTQ magazine. You're also president of the CMO Club. And my question for you is, how do marketing leaders in your CMO network feel about AI, and how are they using AI tools to their advantage?
Yeah, well, thank you very much indeed, Adam. It's great to be here. It's great to be talking with everybody today. Yeah, I've got a number of networks that I belong to, and obviously being a CMO, it's great to be tapped into this sort of global knowledge that I have this great ability to do. It's such a privilege to be able to do it. To answer your question, when it comes to marketing leaders that I'm in discussion with, I've had a few advantages, because you mentioned the CMO Club, for example, and I just wanted to, I'm sure many CMOs will know, but the CMO Club has been undergoing a lot of change recently. It was actually acquired in 2020 by Salesforce. Everybody knows Salesforce, the global company, but they discontinued their involvement with it back in March of this year. But it's been renamed, as all good marketers do, to become Club CMO. So it's currently 900 to 1,000 of the top marketers around the world of Club CMO, and it continues to grow and grow. So it is a great vehicle to be able to tap into some of the minds of the great CMOs around the world with some of the best well-known companies. And many of our people here, and I'm sure people listening, may already be part of what is now Club CMO. When it comes to AI, the obvious is people are very excited about it, and there's been a bit of a cycle. So, we've been through NFTs and cryptocurrency, and, now we're on to AI. But with artificial intelligence, I think a lot of the tools that marketers use have already seen the companies rushing to deliver generative AI type capabilities into the tool. So whether that's the Adobe Creative Suite or many, many others that I could mention, Salesforce included from a CRM perspective, AI has become rapidly embedded into the tools that we all use in our workflows. So most marketers are very excited by the opportunity of AI, but of course, there's always two sides to every story. And some of the angst, some of the challenges that people are seeing when it comes to AI is particularly when it comes to data and data privacy. And obviously, if you are a large organization and you have a lot of proprietary data, or a lot of data maybe that's under NDA, or you work with a lot of global brands. You mentioned I'm the CMO of an organization called Vistatec, and they've been around for 26 years. They only work with the biggest brands in the world, and some of the most progressive brands in the world who sell products and services into international markets. They provide, content, language solutions, localization, transcreation, and content production for the written word, audio, and video. And the reason why I'm saying that is because a lot of these organizations don't want their data put into public large language models. They want to design their own language models. And we've seen some big companies come out. For example, iStock Getty Images said, we've got an AI tool and solution, but we're only training it on our own data. So you can therefore use our outputs in your public and commercial usage rights subject to your license terms. However, not all large language models in the current way we think about generative AI are equal. They're certainly not. A lot of data has been scraped, as we know, from the internet. There are huge court cases going through at the moment. There's lots of legal wrangling about fair compensation for the people that originally created that content, that image, that video. There's also the other side of that, which is people, artists, creatives, who are using AI to produce the most wonderful text to video, text to audio, text to images, whether it's Midjourney or DALL-E or many others that are out there. There's an awful lot of creativity, and who owns that creativity? There are, again, 2 or 3 different arguments going on in that side. But in summary, marketing leaders, at least the ones that I'm connected with, are very excited about the potential of AI, not just for creating content, not just for using ChatGPT 4 at the time of recording, maybe 5, 6, 7, whatever the iterations become as the months click by. Very excited about its capability, a little bit cautious when it comes to data privacy and maybe deciding whether they want their own large language. Know some of the language models now, you can turn on various data settings, a little bit of a gray area for a lot of large organizations. Finally, I would say from a team perspective, if you set it up properly and you invest the time to learn a little bit in terms of how to utilize AI, marketing leaders have found a great multiplier in efficiency because it is helping people to go out. It's like having, and I'm sure we've all heard the term, it's like having a number of assistants working with you that can go out and pull things together, find information. But, the big caveat and the red sticker across all of this is it also tells lies. It hallucinates. It doesn't always get it right. So in all good CMO practices, check what you're being told, double check it, find a couple of sources before you just run off and decide it's the best thing that you've come across. But it's here to stay. The genie is out of the bottle, as they say. It's not going back in. We live in a generative AI world. Near AGI, we're nowhere near quantum computing other than a few 20 or 30 qubits, maybe 100 qubits if you're lucky. So as we continue down this technology road, it's only going to get better. But there are lots of caveats. There are lots of things to be cautious of. But it is definitely already in the marketing tech stack, and it is hugely influential and hugely beneficial to CMOs around the world. I hope, Adam, and I hope to people listening, that gives a little flavor, at least from my viewpoint. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, Simon, that's a big help. Love the content. Thank you so much. So much to take down. We are recording this conference, so I think I'll look at your video a few times. Folks, next up, we have Elizabeth, who is based in Berlin, but originally from Australia. And you are a tech entrepreneur with your previous role being co-founder and CMO of MarketLogic Software, an end-to-end insights platform. And Elizabeth, my question is, you're passionate about the way that marketing leaders engage with and make sense of data. In your opinion, what will this look like in the coming months and years with the rapid evolution of LLMs?
Thanks, Adam, and thanks for inviting me to take part today. For the last 12 years or so as a co-founder at MarketLogic, we were developing and deploying enterprise software to help marketers in some of the world's leading corporations to cut through all their customer, competitor, and market data to find and use insights in their business. And way back in 2016, we introduced the first AI-powered insights platforms with our lead customer then, Unilever, and that subsequently rolled out to many other corporations. More recently, Market Logic has done some great work launching the first generative AI solutions for market research, which is great to see. But I've stepped back to focus on a new startup that's looking at data challenges specifically for marketers in B2B SaaS. And I think this is where we have a phenomenal challenge with data. Most marketers are working with 12 to 20 apps every day. And that's a ton of dashboards and numbers and analytics to be pursuing to try and use your numbers to guide your work. And on top of that, in the B2B software business, we have additional complexities. We have a buyer journey where prospects are taking like 20, 30 interactions with us to get to a closed deal. And we have the phenomenal product-led growth movement, which is bringing new to marketing data sets to our desktops, usage analytics and customer feedback. So there's more and more complexity, and many would say too much data to use. Gartner research revealed a year ago that marketing analytics are only being used in about 50% of marketing decisions. But 70% of us would love to use more marketing analytics in many more decisions, if only if it were presented to us as actionable recommendations. And I think this is where there is great reason for optimism with the evolution of large language models. The speakers have already talked about generative AI and the massive productivity gains that this has delivered in content development and copywriting and so on. But generative AI doesn't really help people that are struggling with too much data, right? We don't need more content, we need to synthesize. And that's where the first use cases in synthesized AI have been so exciting. You know, feed the algorithm data from different sources and have it reduce, synthesize, summarize, and give you short answers to questions. But now what we're seeing are the first large language models that can act as programmable agents, using LangChain to productize an entire scheme with memory and plugins to data sources. So we can task an LLM to plug into our own confidential data, not the entire corpus of public data on the internet, and then use relevant tools like text to SQL to find, aggregate, calculate answers to questions, inverse, reverse question to check for hallucinations, you know, and then move forward. And even better, it looks like we can task these agents to imagine themselves as experts in our field so they can make recommendations we can test and put to use in our daily work. So the potential for these large language models to be our AI companions is fantastic. You know, just having a little happy algorithm at your side that cuts through all your data every day, cuts through those dissonances between sales, marketing, success, product management, is aligning everyone on goals, and is empowering you to ask questions in sequences that fuel your curiosity and power your problem-solving capabilities. So that's really the focus of my new startup, creating new ways of working with AI. And we're developing that work with a co-creation community of people that are also working in B2B SaaS and would like to have a little bit more fun interacting with their data when they go to work every day. So if you're in the audience and you're working in business software in a startup or a growth company, and you'd like to join our co-creation community and join the conversation, would be lovely if you reached out on LinkedIn. So yeah, thanks, Adam.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. And yeah, on Eventbrite, we've listed all the speakers, so feel free to visit Eventbrite or our website, and you can connect with anyone there. Quick thing before we continue, where is everybody based? We did a poll. We have a lot of people in Germany. That's the top country for today, and followed by France, UK, Netherlands. We're all over Europe right now, and we even have some people in Africa and Asia, and 2 people in Oceania, so you're very welcome. Also, in terms of the people attending today, we have quite a mix. We have quite a lot of CEOs and founders. I imagine most of you are startups from Startup Network Europe, but also we have some CMOs, marketing managers. We have big companies, small companies, and we have more B2B people than B2C people in the audience today, which is not really a surprise for Europe. I think we can move on to the next speaker for now. And our next speaker is Grazvydas, who is CMO of NFQ, a 900-person strong software development company that works with successful tech-driven businesses. And my question for you is, can you tell us about your approach to managing the marketing budget and making decisions on how to allocate the resources that you have? It's always a tough one.
Hi everyone, it's nice to see you, all of you, in this conference. Thanks, Adam. The question is very interesting in that kind of timing, because the market budget is when we are spending the marketing budget somewhere, the business could come and cut it immediately if we are not talking about the ROEs and optimization and so on. And how I'm managing the marketing budget and why I think it's effective. I think about 3 different points when we are starting to talk about the budget. It's budget planning and goal alignment with the whole organization. Because if we don't understand what the business objectives and what they are doing, what they are selling, what they are providing for our customers, it's it's very hard to understand where the marketing budget should go. And if right now at NFQ we are providing more than 50 different software engineering services, starting from security, finishing with BI and so on. And if we don't understand that service, it's crucial to miss some budget lines and then spend it on the employer branding or just funny stuff. When it's immediately come back to us and ask how many leads did you generate on that service, and what is your plan to the next quarter and so on. The second thing is to invest into high impact channels. And what do I mean? Like we need to prioritize where we're spending our money and how many leads we are generating from that channel. And it's so important to find the long-lasting channel. It's but it's depends of the station, depends of the market, and depends of your ICPs and buyer personas. If you are don't know your buyer personas in general, it's very hard to to choose the high impact channel, and you are spending in there your budget. And the third, but I think it's a very important point, is monitor your budget and be accountable for your stakeholders, other departments, other teams, because the expectations on you, like a marketing, like a CMO, it's always high, and they're looking for some results and getting back with the very qualified leads, as we can say. And I want to stress one point when we're talking about the marketing budget. We need to talk internally a lot about the ICP, like the ideal customer profile and buyer personas. And if you are providing a lot of services in your company, you need to understand what is your buyer persona, what is the value proposition for that person, and what is the daily KPIs and routines for what that person have. And if you don't know that, you are spending just your resources. And in general, the budget, it's not just only money. We could talk about the most valuable asset, our teams, our competencies. What do we have in our teams and their time? And if we are not focusing and not controlling the process and the focus, we are burning our people and burning our budget. That's the main point. How I'm managing our marketing budget, and I would like to change the resources definition to competencies, because we need competencies, not the resources. And if we are not thinking about that competencies and how they are dealing with the daily routine and a lot of service providers internally, we could burn them out, and then we need to look another team member or something like that. Yeah, finally, I'm doing my reflections each week. I'm doing my reflection, and I'm thinking about how I'm spending my marketing budget, how I'm allocating my competencies and my team competencies, and it's much easier to plan the next week, because the marketing area is never-ending area. Like, it's everything is in the process. That's the final sentence from me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Love that. It's so hard to give advice in just 3 or 4 minutes. So it's easier in 30 minutes. So very grateful to you and the other speakers. We'll go on to the next speaker. And Constantin, are you here?
I'm definitely here.
Brilliant. Yeah, really good to see you. How are you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very sorry I had to postpone the slot for a few minutes. Sometimes things happen in a company that you have to take care of. That's what happened today, but now I'm here and everything's fine.
Yeah, and don't worry about that. I love your setup, and you're the only speaker that we have 2 questions for, because a really interesting background. So basically, you are CEO and owner of BRABUS, which is a high-tech luxury mobility brand company that develops products characterized by its 1-second wow factor, which underlies its customers' unique personalities. Now, you personally have 151,000 followers on Instagram, 41,000 subscribers on YouTube, 78,000 followers on TikTok, and 11,000 followers on LinkedIn. So my first question, lots of creators focus only on one social media channel. So why and how do you manage accounts on several different networks and not just one?
Thanks, Adam, for the question. Let me say it this way. I think there's 2 sides to that story. The first one is an answer that's very clearly, we do not focus on different output channels, but we focus on telling a consistent story about our brand. In other words, when I started as the CEO, before that I was the CMO for a few years, and then I took over the company from my father, who led it for roughly 40 years. And I noticed that there's a lot of stories to tell, a lot of things that the brand has. I was literally walking through the business. I was around the factories, and I was seeing a lot of things where I was asking myself, why aren't we telling that story? It's fascinating stuff. I think that people who care about cars, who care about luxury products, who care about boats, who care about motorcycles, they would love to hear that story. And at this stage, it wasn't about the fact whether we put it out on LinkedIn, whether we put it out on TikTok, whether we put it out on any different channel, and whether we can tailor it towards that channel to maybe quantitatively optimize the last couple of percent. But it was a very basic need to start telling the stories of the brand. There was cool stuff happening. We weren't telling the story. And so I spent about 5-6 years focusing on that side of our business, on building a team that could actively tell those stories on a daily basis. And the focus in that, just getting a coffee, thank you very much. The focus of that was how can we tell the stories, and how can we establish a process that enables us to do that on a regular basis, so that I don't have to start over and over and over again, the kind of from scratch. But how can we build a system to actually do that? The result is sort of a company inside of a company. We've built our own production company with around 30 people that do nothing else but create digital content on a daily basis. That isn't only social media, that's also press releases, that is commercials, high-end commercials that we film ourselves, that is texts, that is all kinds of media. But that's the first answer is, it was about telling stories in a consistent and recognizable way, systematically. Now, that's the first answer. The second answer is, of course, that at some point you're going to have to look at how you deploy those stories technically, and you're going to have, the more money you spend on telling the stories, the more people you hire, cameras you buy, et cetera, the more you're going to have a discussion in any reputable business that is where somebody's going to ask how you spend the money and how many people are actually viewing the content. So you're getting into a discussion where you have your usual checks and balances, and somebody like, for example, our CFO or controlling is going to ask how are you actually spending the money, how many people are watching the videos, how many people are seeing the texts. And that is, of course, it's a natural development. And that's when optimization for channels, so tailoring towards TikTok, tailoring towards LinkedIn, tailoring towards YouTube comes in. But I would describe it as probably the last 10 to 15% of our creation process. I wouldn't say it's the focus. The focus is that we've got a great brand. We believe the stories are worth being told. And that's why we go out there and try to catch them. We specifically don't go out there to try to produce them. That was one of the things I said very clearly when I started. The first things I said when we started telling the stories that happened at BRABUS, also when we started telling the stories that concern myself, I said, I'm not going to fake or manufacture content, because the experiment was essentially in the beginning. The experiment was, can I be a CEO of a, how do I put this best? Can I be the CEO of a luxury business, of a manufacturing business? And can I tell stories about the brand on social media at the same time? And are those two that are complementary, or do we reach boundaries at some point where being a CEO and talking more about things on social media do not interact very well? But then, I mean, to answer the first question, so number one, we focus on creating good content. Number two, we tailor it towards the channels, but that's the last 10 to 15%. And number three, when it comes to the mix of personal brand and the company, it's a bit of a special situation that you have to look at every single time.
Yeah, and I have noticed, for example, on LinkedIn, my company page has more followers, but I think you always get more interaction when you do your personal brands compared to your company brand.
It's interesting that you say that. So for example, okay, maybe this might sound provocative, but I was very happy when you actually told me my own stats about different channels and followers, because I don't look at them on a daily basis. That doesn't mean that we're not professional and we don't look at our follower numbers, but it means that we're focused on telling the stories. I'm a very, very strong believer in the fact in marketing that you have to get the basics right. And the basics in this case are, do we have a brand? Do we have stories? Do we have products that people want to see? If that's the case, we're going to create pictures, videos, texts about them, and we're going to put them online. Sometimes people are going to react more. Sometimes people are going to react less. Sometimes there are things you can do to kind of, and all of these things we are, of course, there's professionals doing it that we are looking at. And we're analyzing how can we get more reach? How can we get more views on the videos? However, I'm not focusing on the fact or on the question, how many followers do I have at any given point in, let's say, on the 2nd of August or the 3rd of August in 2023. I'm focusing on where do we want to get this year? And that goal is most likely going to be measured by qualitative aspects that the business can reach. So I'm much more interested in the fact of how many videos are we going to put out, how many products are we going to describe, how often are we going to interact with our community, than the question how much follower growth we can actually achieve, because I think that is a result and not it's a means to an end to reach more people. But of course, the end in itself is to tell the stories of a brand. And so the main focus of our, because we have very visual products, of course, cars, I think probably everybody can imagine that people want to see cars and hear cars. The same is true for the other product categories that we produce, boats, motorcycles, watches. And of course, the main channels for those, for the story, for building up that company inside of a company that I was talking about earlier, were YouTube and Instagram. And from there it went to TikTok, and it went to LinkedIn. But I have to admit that still YouTube and Instagram are the focus of our activity, because that's where we notice we're getting the most B2C feedback. is there a possibility to significantly ramp up my LinkedIn activity? Absolutely, there is. It's a bit of a different kind of production process, and at some point you only have 24 hours in a day. So we focused the last couple of years on kind of going through a fast and steady learning curve in long format video, because long format video gives us a lot of benefits and a lot of processing chances. In other words, you have a long format YouTube video. It's pretty easy to create a TikTok reel out of it. It's pretty easy to create a YouTube short out of it. It's pretty easy to create a LinkedIn text out of it, because you can give it to somebody who will then look at what did Constantin say, create a text out of it, put it on LinkedIn. Because the number one factor that I'm encountering, that I've started to encounter very quickly, is that I can only, I only exist once. I can't split myself down the middle. And that's become the main bottleneck in the production process.
Great. Well, Constantin, look, great content. This is being recorded. I'm going to look at this video again and again. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So thank you. And next up, we're going to try something with Sue. So we gotta what's it called, improvise here. So Sue, I know you've connected on your phone, and we also have your video. So I'm going to connect your pin your computer images, and now we will connect your phone. So my question for you then is, you are a senior marketing leader and executive with 20 years and more of experience in both D2C and B2B companies, having worked for Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and Bombardier, as well as startups and scale-ups like N26, HelloFreshGO, and Thru Inc. So my question for you is, you have launched more than 50 successful products and brands to markets globally. Can you tell us about your most interesting and challenging launch, and what are the most important decisions to consider when you're launching products?
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you for inviting me for this very interesting discussion. And for those of you who don't know me, like Adam mentioned, I have been now in Berlin for the last 5.5 years. Most of my career was spent in US, and interestingly, product marketing was the initial beginning of my career, where I really spent a lot of time. And I think one of the interesting things about product marketing is product launch responsibility to a large extent falls on the product marketing organization or product marketing team. But in essence, it's really, spread out responsibility between different divisions and different organizations. And I think for me, the most interesting launch has been multiple, actually. I cannot pick one, which is really cool, or one is really great, but I do have a lot of learnings from these launches. And I think my observation when I worked for Microsoft was that a launch is a very well thought process. And I think this really speaks volumes in terms of how the product would go to the market. And I can distinctly remember a very, very strong product launch for Dynamics CRM Live that we launched for the first time when Salesforce was picking up. And this was the very first time that Microsoft was moving in the direction of SaaS space. And so it was a very, very important launch. And the B2B launch to large extent, since we have a big audience here in the B2B, I'm going to also pivot a little bit on the B2B side of the world. And the launch was really interesting because we took a lot of time to not just understand what the uniqueness of what the customers wanted. So I think really the structure and the process was what really made a big difference. And I'll go through that in a minute. But really what was interesting was that engaging the customer from the get-go really played out well for B2B companies. So Microsoft's Dynamics CRM Live was super successful with the launch. It was called the Titan at that time frame, and we went into multiple different versions after that. And there are many, many other product launches. In the most recent years, I can say N26 definitely was one of the most interesting launches I've had. I think the one of the most challenging one was actually N26 Insurance. So I'd be happy to touch on that one for many of you who might actually connect more closely with that product to some extent because it's so European as a company. And so I think a lot of you will probably enjoy listening to this. I think one of the bigger challenges we had was insurance product in itself, was not a very interesting product for the banking customers. And so we noticed that a lot of customers did not really use the insurance product in the existing subscription product that we already offered, which was you and the metal card. And we noticed that launching another insurance portfolio wouldn't be interesting enough to the customers. Would that be something that would really go well? So there was a lot of coordination within product organization, business operations, and marketing as such. And I think we really came together on a multiple different dimensions here. A big thing here was that we were launching something that was not fully ready. So we were launching one which is the mobile insurance, and we had to also showcase the rest of the insurance products. The bigger decision was that, do we only make a small launch of the mobile insurance, or do we talk about the rest of the portfolio of insurance that were coming up in the picture? And so this was, I think, the most challenging decision for the company to take, because we didn't want to risk, coming across to consumers, presenting something that wasn't fully baked. At the same time, we didn't want to lose the momentum of launching such a unique portfolio of product that no other banking or financial company offered. So the thing that really worked out well for us in this specific launch was marking a whole full-fledged portfolio of insurance products together. We took the risk. We took a really big risk on really announcing the entire portfolio to customers. We went big on the launch. We really went on to talk about the whole story and differentiated the product as an on-demand product compared to the rest of the insurance portfolios that existed in the market. And the on-demand story really played out very well for N26 at that time. We got published in TechCrunch, and a lot of different good, advances happened during the launch time, including the user traction. But I would say it was a really big learning for us on both sides, is whether you're really going, want to go big or want to go small should be a decision that should be really vetted out clearly. And so my learnings of all these launches that I've done were actually, 5 things, I would say, step by step. Start early. I think the important thing is to start at least 3 months in advance. My observation is that most companies start launch planning, the last month or a month ahead in advance. Some of them start 3 years in advance, which is great if you're planning a lot earlier on. But I think a good timing would be 3 months to 6 months. The launch planning really begins at the discovery phase of the product. So understand your buyer, understand your target market, understand the use cases, and really start with that baseline. I think that's what really helped in many, many launch successes that I've had and, my companies have had. And I think the failures happened when we didn't really understand the target market. The second one is positioning. So create the value proposition, create the positioning, understand the story, very clearly before jumping into the launch tactics like channels and, collaboration. That's later the stage. But I think positioning is super important to understand what's your story in comparison to the competition. Are you really having the right, differentiator there? And I think this really plays a big role in how you then define the campaign and the rest of the overarching, plan on that front. And number 3, I think at Microsoft, what I really observed was a beta testing, early adopter feedback. This really helped very well in terms of really understanding our customer base well, testing out the product, making a bunch of, customers actually evangelists, who would go out there and tell the story much more successfully. And so we really were successful in Microsoft because Microsoft did not operate in a silo to a large extent. They would engage the customers, not in the consumer side, in the B2B side to a large extent. And this really played out well in terms of, the bigger traction that we would end up having. And then the number 4 is really then the channel mix and the collaborations. I think this is super crucial. Most companies start early on collaborations or, celebrity endorsement and a bunch of other things. I think this should be in the, in the later stage when you really plan out. Of course, some of these timings may be different depending on the partner you choose, depending on the collaboration you choose. But I think it's super crucial to plan out this mix and then go to the launch. I think the 3 things that were my big learnings was alignment was super important. Really aligning the entire organization on, the whole launch plan from day 1 to day, launch, really being very crystal clear on communications. That was super, super important. Communicating effectively and really being able to excite your internal employees as well, besides the customers. I think that plays a way. Your employees are probably your best marketers to a large extent. I think that was really a bigger learning for me. And some of the don'ts I would recommend would be, not to do soft launch. Soft launch, many people try to choose soft launch, and I've seen that soft launch is not a very good success rate. Most launches fail according to Harvard, 95% of product launches fail in every year that they launch. I think largely because it's a soft launch or it's a lukewarm launch. And so if you're really you're putting your bet, do a really good launch. I'm not a big fan of Kickstarter campaigns and some of these Kickstarter launches because they give you subpar success. And I think this is really my, observations are start early, get alignment, plan out your strategy much ahead in advance when you're building the product, then waiting until the product is developed. And I think the most important thing is engage your customers in the B2B side of the world. Start early, keep them under NDA, engage with them, learn their feedback, and can really apply that into making design wins and success stories from there. So that was really my observation and some lessons from there, Adam. I hope that covered, for what you were asking, but more than happy to go beyond that. So.
All good, Sue, and I love that we improvised at the last moment. Your audio was great. And we will move on to our next speaker, which is Oliver. Oliver, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Great. I'll just unpin Sue. Okay, great. We can see you now. So Oliver, you're in a very interesting moment. You're an education marketing consultant, and until very recently, you were the vice president of degree programs and also CMO of Frankfurt School of Finance and Management. So very interesting background in higher education marketing, which is an industry I've worked in, and it has a reputation for having a long customer acquisition time, because it's quite expensive to get a degree, of course. And the student has to decide, will I commit a lot of time to this program? So can you tell us, basically, how do you initially reach students, and how many touch points are involved over the course of a few months or a few years?
Yeah, I think the clue to the answer is actually in your question. The fact that people are investing not just a lot of money, but they're investing a lot of time in what is actually going to be a unique purchase. You may do various different degrees or types of education during your in your lifetime, but you rarely do the same thing twice. So you never see somebody saying, okay, I did an MBA 5 years ago, I fancy doing an MBA again now. It doesn't happen. So when you've got that amount of money, that amount of personal time, anything from, say, 1 year in a master's through to 4 years in a bachelor degree, or 6 years in a doctorate, you invest in a significant amount of time in a one-off purchase, and this becomes a very emotional decision for people. So, of course, I mean, the question about how many touch points and how much lead time, generally we're looking at the common student being somewhere between a 12-month to a 24-month lead time prior to starting their studies. Now, that is a long time to build a relationship, and that's exactly what it is. It means that from the moment we've triggered interest, we have some sort of emotional bond with a customer. We then have to maintain that emotional bond and develop a relationship over a number of years, as you said, up until the point of study without losing them. And there are many pragmatic decisions in there. And you asked me how I initially get hold of the students. The tools we use will not be strange. For example, it's everything to do with lead gen. It's our extensive advertising on Google, on social media. It's email marketing. Invest a lot in SEO, SEA. You also have the traditional school outreach. You go visit schools. You try and find students in their natural habitats, so at the previous place of study. But then it all comes down to what is your value proposition, because there are so many universities looking around all over the world, trying to get their home students, get international students. They're all saying very similar things. We're ranked X, we're number one for this, we're in this ranking for these programs, we're here. Or these are the companies that recruit from us. These are the job opportunities you have afterwards. Your return on investment will be X. You'll pay back your degree within X number of years after graduation. These are all really key metrics, and students will, sometimes if they turn up with a spreadsheet and say, here's my matrix, I've got 10 different sets of questions that are important to me, and now I'm aligning my top 10 universities and checking off all the boxes, trying to come up with a matrix of who I apply to. And more often than not, the students apply to 5 or 10 universities anyway. And that's why it all comes back to this emotional moment. If a university is ranked number one, has great metrics, or the numbers add up, but they don't form that emotional bond with a candidate, they're going to lose out to a school that does. And that school might be worse ranked. It could be completely unranked. But if they manage to secure that emotional connection, they have a good chance of seeing it through to enrollment. And if I think about the difference also, we have certain touch points. I mean, you asked how many. It could be anything from 15 to 30 touch points for any given student. But there are 3 really key moments in that journey. The first one is their first campus visit. So it was really interesting during Corona when everything suddenly for us went online, because our entire recruitment and marketing process was driven towards a point of real-time connection. Because we knew that the moment someone went from an online lead of being in email or telephone contacts to being an on-campus visit, they went from like a 1 in 25 chance of enrollment to a 1 in 4 chance of enrollment. that moment of getting them on campus, of having a face-to-face and really building a personal bond between a salesperson or an admissions person and that student, we're in the end game. The next one is them submitting their application. And that might sound completely obvious, but a huge amount of time, often 12 months of the relationship, is pre-application, and the remaining 6 to 12 months is post-application. So if you can get them to put all of that documentation down, get their application submitted, hand in all their documents, okay, you know you've got you're a really strong candidate, someone who's very interested. You're probably down to a 1 in 2, 1 in 3 chance of securing them at the end. And the last one, of course, is the final touch point, when they pay a deposit. And even then, it's still not a guarantee they'll show up on the first day of class, because deposits can be refunded. At any moment, another school can swoop in with a completely fresh marketing message and say, hey, here's a scholarship, we'd really love to have you, and they can steal a relationship. Very much like dating. It's you put all that effort into building a relationship, and then just a slightly more attractive offer comes in at the last minute and steals it away from you. It's so this is a really emotional journey we have with our students. Yeah, many different touch points, and I've tried to go into kind of the key areas, but it's something that many universities are always struggling with, is how to get the right mix of leads. And someone mentioned having too many leads can be a bad thing. It can. I mean, you can't get good quality if you don't have enough leads. But sometimes when we have so many leads that you can't pick out the top quality candidates and form enough personal relationships, you've got a massive data. And that's actually where we're hoping AI is going to make a big impact. It came up at the beginning of the conference, and this is probably the most interesting area that I've been working on in the last 12, 18 months, is how we embed AI into that filtering process, into the relationship building. So there's a lot of change coming in education.
Oliver, thank you so much. Yeah, and I know it's very much broken, the higher education marketing system. So good luck with all your new venture as well. Next up, folks, we have Peter, who is CMO of Cosmo Consults, a national software and consulting company that is one of the world's leading providers of Microsoft-based industry and end-to-end business solutions. My question for you: digital marketing is evolving rapidly. So what do you think are the most important skill sets for B2B marketing leaders to have this year in 2023?
Thank you, Adam. I hope everyone can hear me.
All good.
I really loved Oliver's dating model, because my philosophy actually is we always need to have love at first sight, you know, and that's because you can never make a first impression twice. So you really need to impress, let's say, your customer or your prospect right from the start. Yeah, actually, I'm picking up the topics of Simon Formanowski, because what he said is exactly applying to my business as well. The topic of integrating sales and marketing aspects, we call it smarketing, to make it shorter, you know. And in the past, we have always been, as marketers, let's say, the little unloved son of the CEO, because we were spending a lot of money, and the chief revenue officer or the chief sales officer got all the money into the company, and we spent it. And what we can see now, and this is the first topic when it comes to our skill set, it is marketing is getting more and more important in our business. And that is due to all that data-drivenness that we can face right now, even in a B2B context. And I have been in this area for almost 30 years now. And at the beginning, I always used to sit left of the sales manager or the sales management. And now, actually, marketing is doing the strategy. And the more digital it becomes, the more important we are, because sales is not as mature in tech as we are. So this is a very good situation. So collaboration and leadership and aiming at aiming at shared goals is very important. And for us, for example, at Cosmo Consult, we have changed, for example, the responsibility for sales qualified leads to the marketing, and not only producing marketing qualified leads, because at the moment we are creating a lot more marketing qualified leads than we can digest in our industry. And the responsibility of taking care of SQLs instead of MQLs has changed a lot and has been a right topic to do. We can see that in the results and also in the growth of our company. What is the second topic? I was talking about tech maturity. Tech maturity is extremely important. We heard a lot about CRM usage, Salesforce was named, AI was named along the customer journey. Of course, this is very important, and we are a Microsoft partner, so we are not using Salesforce, we are using Dynamics 365, of course. So it's more like drink your own champagne. So we are really also using the technology that we are selling. And of course, we are also integrating marketing automation. And we just had a workshop half an hour ago or 1 hour ago around AI usage within our organization, especially within our sales processes. It was just like Elizabeth said, it's not the question of getting all the data, it's getting the right data and do something with the right data along the way. And this is exactly what we were discussing this morning. We were really thinking of, okay, so do we really need to take care of all the data we got, or is there special data along the usage of the system that is crucial to, let's say, evaluate, let's say, which lead or which SQL is valuable or more valuable than the others. We found some great solution. Unfortunately, it's not a Microsoft solution yet, but at least we found a solution. But then the third topic that is important is really, and this is something that we have, this is not only a marketing topic, to really use data in decision making. And this is very important throughout our organization. Maybe we are, let's say, the first adopters or early adopters, but we really need to work on the mindset of our organization to build data-drivenness into our business model. And this is something you can imagine. We are a content-driven company with a lot of different formats of content, of course, webinars like you are providing right now, Adam, and we really need to understand as a company that everyone in the company somehow produces data or can provide data for our decision-making processes, and we are not that far yet. We hope to get there, and I hope, Elizabeth, that we will meet in Berlin. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. And that's the last of our rapid fire talks. And next up, we have a one-to-one conversation between Philippe from TikTok for Business and Yanni, who is social media head at Bastei Lub. I don't speak German. I hope I've pronounced that right. How are you doing, guys?
Thanks so much, Adam. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all the speakers that came before us. And we will move over to our little one-to-one conversation now with Johnny. But let me first introduce her. She's definitely yeah, a very interesting character and has a lot of marketing expertise under her belt. So she is the head of community management and social media at German publishing house Buschmann. She holds 10 years of social media communication expertise under her belt, and she says about herself that she's a dedicated book lover and chronically online. So ladies and gentlemen, this is Johnny. Hey Johnny, how are you doing?
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you, Phil. It's great to see you again. And thank you, Adam, for the opportunity. Yeah, well, I think, Philip, you just introduced me. You see, books, we are online. I think those are my two passions already combined. It was a great opportunity here to listen into all of these plentiful ideas of marketing in general. I mean, I'm coming from the social media field, and it's pretty much my focus. But here at Buschmann, which is one of the biggest publishing houses in Germany, we are part of marketing and marketing solution in general. So of course, I always have my social media glasses on, but I'm in the marketing world. And I think a lot of topics that you guys just tapped on are discussions we have here every day about making the right choices, reaching the getting data into the right context for making the best decisions with our budget. So that has been quite inspiring so far.
Absolutely. Johnny, we do know each other a little bit. So I know that you've been leading the German social media team for Douglas, like one of the biggest beauty retailers actually like in Europe. So tell me, now that you work in the publishing world, so how did that move happen, like from the beauty industry to publishing? It's quite the stretch.
It is a stretch, obviously, because you have totally different setups of target groups that you're actually dealing with, and a totally different setup of products. So I think beauty industry, those are products, even though they beautify you and people have a strong relationship to it, the relationship people build towards books is totally different. It's a much more emotional journey that you have. With a book, it's a lot of commitment to, actually read those pages and get involved, and even the selection of books. I think that was also something we talked about, finding the right product for those people. And I think a different challenge is also each book, that's a different product. So sometimes you're lucky you have successful authors, like for example, Ken Follett, that some of you may know, and people just know what they get with him, or Dan Brown. But what do you do if you have like a new author starting up, or you have an author who just likes to create totally different books every time they write? So every time you have to find a new target group and talk to different people, and that's an exciting challenge. Also because in our publishing house we have 10 different brands that we cover, so from children's books to nonfiction books and all in between. So yeah, that's quite a challenge, but it's very exciting. And I think it's also maybe a perspective that we haven't focused today so much, is what the audience really wants, or what people really want to see.
Absolutely. And so this event is obviously brought to you by TikTok, and due to our partnership with Startup Network. So Johnny, tell me a little bit. You and I, we had a masterclass actually at the Frankfurter Buchmesse last year, and we talked about TikTok there and your strategy on TikTok. So how do the world of publishing and TikTok go together? Like, how do you find your audience basically on the platform?
Well, the great thing is that a lot of book lovers love to connect with each other. So actually reading is kind of like a bit of a lonely hobby. You just sit at home. I mean, some people love the coziness of it, but if you like a book, and I think speak for a lot of people here, if you like a book, you want to tell people, you want to say, oh my God, I read this book, it changed my life. And it's actually also a hobby that tells you a lot about people. So if I say I like this book or that book, it tells you something about that person. It's a bit different from I like this lipstick or that lipstick. Maybe it doesn't work with my complexion or whatever. It doesn't tell you a lot about my personality. So there were already a lot of conversations happening organically on TikTok. And for us as publishing houses, it's really interesting because I mentioned it's difficult to have like telling a different story for each book. You have to find your audience. And that's something I think is really great with TikTok, because the content actually looks for the audience. So I think that's one of the great things with the algorithm working with TikTok, that the content that you provide is actually tailored onto what the people are looking for. And we also have to have a look at the analytics parts of things. I think it's really important, but we have to be really smart about it. So unlike other channels or platforms, we don't look too much at how many people are following us. It's more like how many people are actually watching a video and start a conversation around this. And that's better for us in this context because we can reach people that we don't reach on other platforms anymore. I mean, still other platforms are really important for us, but it's also dependent on the brand. So for example, nonfiction, that's every time. I mean, nonfiction titles are such a huge variety of topics, and that's when you really need a platform where you can really tailor down the content for specific audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you mentioned here something very, beautiful actually. So that basically, like on TikTok, it's not necessarily about like who you follow. So we're not like following the social graph, but it's really about the content, right? Like what do you as a brand put out there and with whom you want to connect? And so basically, the more content that you as a user consume of like a certain types of, for example, books here, like the more of this exact content will be feeded to you in your in feed. So that's very interesting. We briefly touched on it, like finding like the community that connects here with your brand. So how do you at Basta Löbe and your team, how do you find your specific audience for all your different brands on TikTok?
Well, on TikTok, I mean, first of all, we listen and really watch content. I think it's something that I learned very early on. So I started the TikTok channel with Douglas, which is the biggest beauty retailer in Europe, actually. And the first thing we did is spend a lot of time on TikTok. So actually, for one of our label imprints, which is super focused on TikTok. It's the new adult genre, which is the biggest on BookTok, actually. We actually hired a person. She is a dedicated BookToker. She is an influencer. We hired her because we learned that being really embedded with our content in this community to understand their memes, their specific memes, their kind of language, what is important to them. That's where you have to go a bit native. I mean, we talked about the emotional connection today earlier, and I think you only can build an emotional connection if you speak the language of the people receiving what is going on. And that's the first thing that we do, is spend a lot of time within the specific groups we want to puncture, and try to find our own voice in that. And spend a lot of time on TikTok and also pushing out a lot of content, which is, I think, a big challenge for us, to be honest, to scale that.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I think like not only for TikTok, but I think generally for any social platform or entertainment platform, just be part of the community, right? Like interact with comments on your videos. Like on TikTok, you can stitch videos, do ad videos of exactly your audience, and so you are not just like a one-way communication channel, but you really become one with your potential customers. So that's really important. You mentioned it there. You hired someone specifically who's also like, very knowledgeable in the industry. She's a BookTok, content creator. So would you say that it has influenced your hiring even, or like how can I imagine that?
Yes, and not only in this position, but also in other positions. I mean, the influential leadership of TikTok, we see that on other platforms. I don't have to name them, but we see the copycat products. So obviously the look and feel that TikTok provides in that circles has influenced not only for specific genres, but overall how the publishing industry start to communicate. And I think what you mentioned, this dialogue form, we saw it with Instagram first, where people were speaking up a bit more. Bookstagram was the hashtag, and people want to get more involved. But we see it even more. People really want to go out and say, this is my favorite book. Please have a look at it. And it's not like those influencers have huge followings, especially if you compare it to the beauty industry. And I think it's something I really want to raise here, especially because a lot of the audience are people who are in startups and who are like, oh my God, so many followers, how do I gain them? That's not really the goal, I think, with TikTok. So what you really need to is find your niche and start to speak like your niche and start to get involved with that. So it's not like necessarily reaching millions of followers. It's finding a tonality that really resonates with the people you want to target. And I think this is also really important if you start a channel like that, is being clear of what you want to achieve there. It's like trying out, but also be clear, okay, do I want to raise a profile for myself? Do I want to engage with someone else? I think this really helps to focus, because I mentioned earlier, we have to scale, and we see that for us that we have really clear metrics, what we want to achieve, but we are also very clear on what we cannot achieve on that platform for us. And I think this is really important to be smart about that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it there, like try it out, like whatever, like whenever I'm, speaking to, partners, customers, it's always like, okay, Philip, we do not necessarily know where to start, like which videos will get us, the most views and interaction. Well, try it out, try different forms of content types, and don't be afraid of flops, right? Like we all like put some marketing campaigns out there, which might not result necessarily in, the KPIs and the results and the ROI that we were looking for. But like the beauty of TikTok is really like, don't like, be yourself, try it out, and like put videos up there, creators, but leave them there for a while, right? So content can still become viral even after a year or two on the platform. So
yep,
try it out.
Yeah, but I think, be yourself, even if you're a brand. I mean, Constantin from BRABUS, he's actually standing as a CEO for his company, and I think that can also be a very smart thing to do. It's something that we to achieve more, is like building faces for our imprints, so people just immediately know, okay, this is the kind of person who reads these kinds of books, and this resonates with me. So behind the scenes content is something that is really valuable. I think Oliver mentioned it with, even when you go to university, the person-to-person contact, that's something that's really valuable. And I think if you can provide that in a video, like showing your human side, I think that is something that resonates so well, especially on TikTok.
Right. Just being mindful of time, because I know we're 16 minutes already over time. Johnny, quickly, what are your top 3 tips when it comes to TikTok and digital marketing in general? Tell me.
Yeah, but first, my first tip is, please bear in mind who's your target group. So I think that's something I cannot stretch enough. If you maybe not like something so much, consider if your audience likes it. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, be really clear about your goals and stick to them. So be smart of what kind of goals you want to set for yourself and what you want to reach. And I think the third thing is really check on now and then if your numbers are sticking to that goals, if that really works. So I think these are the 3 things, like keep your audience in check, be smart about your goals, and really make sure that you check them from time to time. And use the solutions that are provided here. I think a lot of the previous speakers raised some ideas of how you can check your data. I think that was really inspiring today, and I hope everyone in the audience got some interesting insights.
Thank you very much, Johnny, for sharing your input and your wisdom with us today. Before I hand it over to Adam for final words, we put a link in the chat. So like, if you feel like you are kind of ready, like to start on TikTok, but don't necessarily know how, just like click on that link, like leave us, submit the form basically there, and we will reach out to you. Like, we will get you started. It's a one-on-one consultation. Like, we know that it's like, it might seem like a big challenge to like get started on the platform, but it's really not that much of a deal, like to just get started. So if you feel like, okay, we're ready, like submit the link. And now, thanks to all the speakers from my side, from TikTok for Business. And Adam, final words from you.
Yes, hello everyone from Greece. I'm in Thessaloniki right now, remote working. Great conference. I love it. It's great. but I'm getting a tan. This is very, very brown for me. Guys, thank you so much for coming. Really, really appreciate your time today, especially the people who stayed longer. Thanks to Philip and Johnny for the last talk just there. And yeah, everyone have a great day ahead. Hope you got some value from today. Thank you.